And now we will go from Argentina to America. The journey of 1,000 miles with Vanessa Simon, um, entrepreneur and artist, and the Global South Arts and Health Envoy for the USA.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, how are you,
I'm a
Vanessa?
little out of breath, Gigi. That was awesome.
It's good. Change your sec. You're going to be really excited now when you to answer
I
all
know.
the.
It's true. Oh,
So it would be good for you to tell us a bit more about yourself.
sure. So like you said, I'm an entrepreneur. I have a small business called Mariposa Arts. And through this business, I founded and directed a program called Healing Through the Arts. And that is my heart rate is like, that is a partnership with my Mariposa Arts and the Delaware Art Museum. And but aside from that, I'm a mom and I'm married to a wonderful man named Craig Simon, who's on here. And I think that's the part that sometimes we don't see, the people behind us who are really our support and are part of our huge part of my community.
I have a friend who I remember when she introduced herself, she said, I'm a mom, and I consider that part of my arts practice.
Yes,
Really
that was
powerful.
my greatest creation, really.
Yeah, so I think it's lovely to speak about, how our careers and our lives kind of intertwine with our personal lives. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, So I mean, I'd love for you to share a bit of insights around the field of arts and health. You spoke about, working in partnership, for instance, working with museums. Would love to just hear a bit more about, what you've learned in your career and through your experience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm continually learning so much. I've founded my program in 2016. So we're about 6 years in, but it's still growing a lot. And really the partnership has been a huge learning experience. There have been times where I was asked to turn the program into a nonprofit. And I've decided to keep it as a for-profit because I really believe in the creative economy. I really believe that we deserve to make money from the gifts that we give. And I believe that there should be fair pay for everybody. And so I feel like the way that I can most influence that is by being a business owner. And I'm grateful for the partnerships that I have. I mean, our funding goes through the art museum. I use a fiscal partnership with the museum. And so it's earmarked for the program, whatever funding we get. And that's wonderful. And I'm grateful for that. But I really believe in being a driver of the creative economy. And I have come about through this I've come through the arts and health just through my own experience. I've always been a creative person since I was a little person, a little child, and being creative in some form has always, just informed how I process everything, how I process life, but especially how I process suffering. And about 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and my children were very little, and it was very shocking to me. And I was so grateful for all the science and all the medicine that helped me to recover and to help me, to treat the cancer. But what I found afterwards is that there really was very little care for the person, the spirit, and the soul. And that's where creativity came in for me. And I used it in a very real way to heal myself. And I'm still healing, 10 years later, it's still a process. So I discovered pattern drawing and the benefits of that to our brain and anxiety and depression. And not only that, but also the community that can get built around the art table is so important. So that's what I do. That's what I share through my program. It started solely for breast cancer patients, survivors, and their caregivers. And we did that for a few years. And then as the pandemic hit, and I think the world became a little bit more open to the way that the arts help us in times of trouble, we were able to expand our program to many different populations. And now I'm working with, well, something that I'm very proud of. We're doing workshops in Spanish, and that is my native language. As you said, I'm from Argentina. And so we've been able to serve the Spanish speaking community here in Delaware. And I'm working with veterans groups, mental health groups, community centers in our city that has high incidence of violence and people experiencing poverty. So we've been able to expand it just to a wide array of people.
That's amazing. And you mentioned you're based in Delaware and your background is from Argentina. How have you been able to work with maybe communities in Argentina? Have you been able to connect your practice?
I have not. And that's something that I'm really curious how being a part of this envoy can help us all to connect, to make the world a little smaller. I'm also by marriage, a Trinidadian. So I'm really curious about the work that could be done there. We recently learned that, in Trinidad, there's a higher incidence of breast cancer for some reason, and that's sort of grown in the last few years. And so, I'm really curious about how I could transfer this to our home countries. But what I do locally is that, I make sure that whatever populations we're serving, that the artists, instructors reflect the population that we're in. And so, because I think our lived experiences bring a lot of richness into how we instruct as artists or how, we connect with people as community organizers. And so, and that's one of the parts of a big mission in my business.
Love that. Um, I'd love to hear about maybe an example of some of the impact that your program's been able to make.
Yeah. Well, early on, working with cancer patients, what I heard and what I saw was that we were serving folks who were adult beginners who had never uh, considered themselves creative or sought creative outlets outside before cancer, and then went through cancer and came out of it feeling like they had to paint or they had to do something creative with their hands. And I think I think that just even how what we just experienced with Gigi, the embodied part, is so important. It's good to have talk therapy, and there's a place for that. There's a place for support groups, but there's also a place for the arts and us using our bodies in a creative way. Whether we're painting, we're drawing, we're sculpting, we're dancing, whatever that is, we're playing drums, whatever that is. And I've heard over and over again that people feel this almost like a calling that they can't just squash down. I've also, we have a veterans group that meets at the museum every week, every Friday for 2 hours, and they are a group of veterans who are from different age groups, so it's multi-generational. They have had different branches of service. They have served in different conflicts, and the thing that they say unites them is this art making, that is sort of brings them together, and then they can share, like at one of our events, we also invite the spouses, and so the wives were talking to each other about their experiences being veteran, being married to somebody who served in the military, and then the husbands were talking about their experiences in Vietnam. And so what I see is that at the art table, without having to say, okay, now let's sit down and talk about what you're feeling, it's sort of like creating side by side leaves a space of organically being able to connect to one another and sort of share, our what is helping us, or just even process that, like, yeah, that was hard, or. So we're very careful to not, we don't do art therapy. We do non-clinical art therapeutics. And we're very careful to not cross that line. But what I see is that that really does happen very organically around the art table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think everybody here kind of attests to that.
Yeah.
Um, do you work with people with neurological disorders? I see a question in the chat on how do you work with patients who have cancer and neurological disorders?
Um, so again, we're non-clinical, right? So I don't really go into, the short answer is no. Um, but we serve, but they may be having that sort of issue, and then they just come to me. The way that I run the program is that I partner with organizations that are already serving folks in these populations, and they're the experts at what they do. We become just a resource for them because they don't know how to, or may not have the resources, the funding to offer an art class. But we do. So when we come in, our program is free to the organization. It's free to the participants, and we come and just remove that barrier, and we bring all the supplies. We bring the instructor, and so there are people who are experiencing a lot of different things, whether it's mental health or physical health, and we allow for the organizations to do what they do best in serving them. So I don't have any advice specifically to that, but what I have noticed is that that I've learned that I have to be a really good listener and listen to what the populations are telling us is helpful to them. And when I see that there's something that I'm unfamiliar with, I have to be curious and a learner, and really never stop learning, because that is something that if I walk into any situation thinking that I know what's going to help them or what's best for them, it's not going to work out well. I know what a cancer patient goes through, some of that, and I know what that feels like and understand that. And so I can speak to that, but there's a lot of other things that I don't. And I think, I just think it's important to be very responsible with that and be a great listener to the organizations that I work with and allow them to tell me, what they think they need.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask this one question out loud, but I do see another question. So we've only got a few minutes. So one, are all the programs housed in museum? Yes, no.
No,
And
no.
so you're working with different organizations to deliver these classes. But finally, I wanted to speak about your recent nomination by Joe Biden to be a member of the National Council on the Arts in the United States. How do you feel that this possibility will, materialize? How do you hope to explore, this role, I guess, during the final nomination?
Yeah, to be very honest, I'm still wrapping my brain around that. I'm very honored and honestly like shocked. I've known for some time because they've been vetting me, but I'm still like learning about that space, and I've gotten a little bit more at the local level in my state, more involved in advocating for funding for the arts. And I think that what I see right now, still learning, what I see is that I would love to be a voice for all of us. Um, my, I'd say myself as an immigrant, as a person that had to learn English here in this country, um, us as creative folks and us as folks that are trying to make this space of the arts and health something that's respected and understood. And it takes all the parts of us, right? It takes the research, it takes the medicine, it takes the artists, it takes the community organizers, and much more. And so I hope that that's what I can do. I hope that I can make space for all of us. And I don't know how that's really going to play out, to be honest. But I feel very honored, and I feel a responsibility, and I'm so happy to hear about all of you. And I honestly, Mr. Bailey, Christopher, I'm so grateful that we have you in our corner. Thank you so much for highlighting us and the work that everybody's doing. Before this nomination, I very much felt like I'm just this little person working in my corner, doing what I can in my corner of the world, and I see, but I feel like, when the more that we all do that, the more that we're just trying to make our little corner of the world better, and use our gifts for that, the more that the whole becomes better. So